or in all public comment or ensuing discussion. I don't believe we have any members attending remotely.
Nope.
No. Okay. So all votes tonight do not need to be roll call votes because we have there's no members attending. I just want to mention one thing. Last week there was the tragic accident in the National Grid worker, and also a woman, a Waltham police officer. And I think, even though there may be competitors around, I think it's appropriate for us to kind of extend our condolences to the families of these two individuals. You know, Officer Paul Tracy and National Grid worker Barbara Jackson. So I think extend our condolences to their families. It's a tragic accident. So showed you the dangers of being utility worker at times. Yes. Okay. And with that, we go to public comment. First, we got Citizen Advisory Board. Anything good?
Yes, three things. Today, because we had the IT report, and since there's a public meeting, there's only so much information that's shared. One of the things we've requested from RMLD was an executive session to understand in some detail some of the progress and concerns that the management has about IT capabilities, more from the perspective of funding and looking at what is being done. And because at least from the CAB perspective, I know we really have never had a good discussion about what are the capabilities, where should the money be spent. And so my request was to have an executive session for the CAB, and if it makes sense, it could be most effective if both the commission and the CAB had something like that, so that we could discuss everything in a closed session, so it's not open to the public. And we could discuss, what are the real requirements from an IT perspective, resourcing. So that's something that, Greg had offered to do for the CAB, and I'm mentioning it here because it could be effective. So let me take that in the question. The second thing was, we discussed policy 30, and one of my requests for the agenda for our meeting was to request RMLD to do an emissions analysis. We talk about how the state guidelines for carbon-free emissions, but as an organization, I see many utilities talking about scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, talking about the carbon footprint. And so my request was for RMLD to do that going forward in 2024. And that's something that just wanted you all to know, okay?
Okay.
And the third thing was some discussions around policy 30, some language specifically to be inserted around in the attachment about fuel cells. And just so, because there's a lot of work that I think RMLD is being very creative and innovative in how they're going about looking proactively for capabilities to generate on-site energy. And so I think providing some, because we've been specific to some extent, and Greg has some of that language that he can share with the commissioners.
Okay.
So those are the three things that I thought were noted.
Greg, you want to respond to any of that?
Yes, actually, when we get to policy 30, we've actually inserted some text and draft in there. So the first thing relative to the IT, I'll take 1 through 3. We're tentatively scheduling for probably the March session to add that to an agenda and to make an executive session focused on IT aligned with the March meeting, the CAB. And we can make it a joint meeting or do it shortly thereafter if the commissioners like to do that. That's 1. 2 is relative to policy 30. So we have an initial step relative to how we're going to start. So we want to report not only on our non-carbon compliance, but also on our greenhouse gas emissions. So we've already started that process. We shared kind of a concept of how we're going to do that in a couple steps, quarterly basis from power supply, quarterly basis from operations, and then eventually a monthly basis. So over the course of 2024, the equivalent of a carbon footprint. So that's the second piece. So we're very supportive of that idea. We're going to work through how we do scopes 1, 2, and 3, or levels 1, 2, 3 in terms of a scope perspective. And then the third piece relative to policy 30, we had discussed. So we will, the draft that you guys had in your book, we actually added some additional sections in the policy elements. And then we have a draft, which we will share with you in a red line version when we get to policy 30 that reflect the potential sources that would be consistent with the we have as well. So all in process and all supported.
All right,
Thank you.
Okay, so I don't see any liaisons here, and we have an honored guest here, Mary Ellen O'Neill, former commissioner. And does she need to come up to a microphone to be for the RCTV?
I think you can hear it.
Can it be done? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's-
Okay.
that's what's
Very good,
picking the-
Mary Ellen.
That's what's picking up the echo.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
microphone is on, and these are on.
Speaker, that's fine. Don't wanna. Blow the. All right, Phil?
Go ahead. Yep.
Mary Ellen O'Neill, 125, somewhere around in Reading. I want to speak briefly on 3 things. One is, the funding for, heat pumps or perhaps other energy efficiency measures. As you know, oil customers in the municipal light plant area are not eligible for any of the programs from that saving. My neighbor was telling me how they got a $20,000 interest-free loan from that save to put in a heat pump. So there was also an article, I'll leave this here with you in the business section of the Globe from November 20th about a new program up in Ipswich, which is municipal work plant area. And they are starting a pilot program, and they focus on this one fellow who needed to replace his oil burner. He said, as part of a pilot program, the local utility will pay most of the $22,000 upfront cost to replace Fitzgerald's oil furnace with an electric heat pump system, allowing him to pay back the principal using the savings from his energy bill. Kind of a very unique program. They're doing a partnership with something called Center for Eco-Technology. But I think it's time for RMLD to kind of do a little bit more. I know they've increased their different rebates and, in my opinion, I'm just looking at the financial statements that were online. You can access the July, June 2023 financial statements. In my modest opinion, the RMLD is in a fairly robust financial situation. We afford to set aside a fund to do either of those approaches or something different. So I think I would like to see the RMLD move forward on that. The second topic I wanted to discuss with you was several years back when the RMLD board left their procurement contract with Aspen and signed up with Mayor. They increased the, I would say, the span of the cutting on the trees, which is that increase. And street trees are stressed. Trees in general, I can't speak to the other communities, but in Reading, trees in general are under attack. Words. By continued development and stripping out of trees on new lots. We're seeing a kind of a devastating loss of trees up on Grove Street near the town forest, with more to come. And I'd like to see the street trees help. And so when I came to the RMLD board a few years back, I think pre-pandemic, I asked if the board could do something to, in the tree-related world, kind of compensate for the additional damage that was going to be inflicted on the municipal street trees because of the new tree contract and its parameters. And I want to get some information. Not right now, I'm certainly not on the spot. That's true. I thought there were some assurances that it would be done. I think what the third thing was I did browse the fact online, and policy 30 touches on something that's very close to my heart. It's spoken about the renewable energy certificates, or whatever the new terminology for those are. I just want to share with you a couple of my impressions of reading that draft on policy 30. One, I think the tone I was very dismayed with the tone. The overall tone to me, reading it just for the first time today was, well, if we really have to do it, we will do the bare minimum. It just sounded so tight, and I feel like we're in a all hands on deck moment, and we just have to have kind of a better and more what the word would be to describe it, just a better attitude towards it. This is something that is our future, our children's future and grandchildren, etc. And I don't want to see us just kind of like, the word that really kind of set me off was incremental. And incremental means slow, like we can barely do it, but we can just reports do. So I think it's time to see if we can, you know, do something a little bit better, a little bit more, you know, let's get on this, let's do something. Two other points is, I don't believe in selling. I've never believed in selling the Rex. That's what defines non-carbon, or green global. It just allows big corporations to get out of here, having to clean up their act by just purchasing things on the open market. So, you know, my feeling is, do not sell the Rex. Buy them with, you know, the non-carbon power purchases, keep them. And the other thing that bothered me in policy 30 was that, and this is nothing against Greg, it's not personal, it's about the position, but I don't believe the board should give up its ability of oversight over the selling. If the RMLD does like to sell those, the board should be informed or should be consulted beforehand if the RMLD were to move in that unfortunate direction of selling them. It should not be left up only to the general manager. I think the board needs to hold on to its oversight over, as you know, power supply contracts and, you know, all the important aspects of that. And this is certainly one of the important aspects. So
Okay.
that's it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay. And we'll cover that when we get to policy 30 in more detail.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
I do.
Just a
Yep.
program,
Thank you
but I
very
just
much.
wanted to share that.
Great, thank you.
All right. We have the report from the CAB.
Yeah.
Pam, you were there.
Yep, I was there. Actually, Vivek covered the topics that I wanted to cover very clearly, so I probably don't need to repeat what he's already said, but I think we'll have a really good discussion on the IT update that Mr. Pelletier is going to provide, and then a great discussion on the Rex and policy 30. So
Okay.
Just get to it.
Very good. All right. Next, we have the minutes. You want to make the motion? Yes.
Sure. Move that the RMLD Board of Commissioners approve the July 20th, 2023 and September 15th, 2023 open session meeting minutes as presented on the recommendation of the general manager and the board secretary.
Is that second?
Second.
Second, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Right, not left. Yeah, that motion carries 4-0. Okay, we're up to the information technology report. Okay.
RMLD. This is the IT and cybersecurity report, December 23. So the agenda for this demonstration is the IT and OT models, virtual environment upgrades, cloud fail upgrades, SCADA upgrades, end user cybersecurity training, OT cybersecurity investments, IT staff skills development. Under IT and OT network modernization, I guess over the OT is operational technology or industrial control systems. That would be the easiest way maybe to think of that is the generation and distribution, switching the equipment, all the equipment associated with that on the other side. Also, the traditional side is the IT, you know, your Office 365 applications, your so what we've done is we've We did all new gates in the core switching upgrade. So new data switches in the substations to increase the fiber optic throughput to the substations. This is all part of keeping our equipment up to date. Today's code levels, patch, its best practices. And it's something it's part of like that RMLD IT. And it's been ongoing. I think it's always going to be there as long as we have equipment here that we're responsible for. That's the thing. Well, part of that, we have a virtualized equipment, both here at Ash Street and in Bedford, which is where we have a lot of our backup storage and sets recovery capabilities. That environment is completely upgraded to include all the storage and all the code levels of latest and greatest. That's just part of another example of keeping our equipment up to date and where it needs to be. On the application side, we upgraded Cogsdale, which is the application suite the business operates on. It's involved, it controls all of our billing, customer service, financial applications, purchasing. That was a major upgrade. A lot of planning beforehand, teamwork and execution went well. On the application side, we upgraded Cog. We upgraded the three like the meter reads, process the billing. So downtime, especially in that application suite, there's not a lot of spot to can't have the system down for 2 3 days. Probably upgrade. So a lot of it's like just like changing entire very, very long. SCADA is the system that we use test and control side. It's a virtual service, hybrid service, network infrastructure, control and switching. It's how we get all our works. That has to be maintained as well. So we upgraded all of the applications across the upgrading physical servers and security updates, the latest patch levels, because SCADA is not exposed necessarily to the public. But those servers still have to be a little bit of a two-step process, so you can't do automatic. It's a little bit more manual, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have to be done. So we do maintain that environment just so we maintain IT. This is a big one, at least for me and for everyone to kind of get on board with end user cybersecurity training. It's super important. We do it quarterly. Initially, there was some, but it's just once they get used to it and understand it's better for them, they can use it in their personal lives as well. They should be more aware and the benefits of the company. If you're inspired, big part of it, vision your skills, the major way that are happy. It's credentials, obviously, it's a big problem. People will say, "Oh, get something free. Just put this information on pay," and they'll just type away and give their information away. So, being aware is super important, and all the users, I think, we do a lot of it. We do phishing where we'll send we'll create the phishing email ourselves. We'll send it to them, see if we can get take the bait kind of thing, as well as routine general security training. People programs training. If something comes out, card skimmers, that came up recently in the news, and all that stuff comes out, I send out an information email to people just so in case if they missed it, and to include ways that they can avoid having information.
As part of this, I know I'll have to get a rating of, how many, what percentage of that email entry, but do you report that out to the?
We do. That comes up in the managers meeting, and then we send reminders out, and then if someone still doesn't, if they're here, I'll go by and see them, just remind them, and if not, then I'll contact the supervisor that security training is not optional. And I know sometimes people look at it and they honestly may look at it and go, I think that's a phishing email, and maybe they won't open or something, but I get the statistics of what was delivered, who opened the email, and then I just routinely go through and make sure that I get as many as I can. And all the new users get 2 series of training initially. Their comments set up. When we have outside vendors, they're required to do security training as well if they're going to access this.
In the quarterly training, what does that look like? There are multiple choices for the spot update.
Well, yeah, it depends what it is. We mix it up, so we want maybe to get the same kind of thing. So it'll range from a training of how to spot phishing emails, you know, and you just hover over it, it will tell you, you know, that this pop up will say this is why this email address is suspect, you know, and it'll also give you other tips, you know, tips and tricks. We also do just a straight up phishing, like I think I said when I was it was not Amazon. So it says it's an Amazon gift card. Yeah, just enter this information. You click on it and send it to training. Tell us why you shouldn't be doing that. And we've had results. People many times have sent me emails and stuff. Yeah, I got this email. Let's kind of check it out. So I think people are paying attention and it's yielding benefits for everyone.
One of the things that, you do training on things like, what are your own personal sites and getting back to expecting them later, right? Well, you know.
Oh, yeah, we do get one. And what they'll do is it goes back to the same, you know, awareness.
Right.
They won't have RMLD.com, but they might have RMLD. So they'll create that domain. They launch from there. If you're not paying attention, it looks very good. You know.
Well, like my specific question was around the personal site. That's even though you've got your work email and your phone number, there's also an awareness about your own personal site. People may be able to get your number.
There does, and that's why we send out, in addition to RMLD specific, we send out just general cybersecurity, which includes that kind of stuff. And especially even on holidays, you know, hey, you know, it's holidays, everyone's online, everyone's busy, and their credit card numbers are floating around, and we also scan for that on the network to make sure about storing credit card numbers. So it's very interesting. So, equally important to end user training is the IT training. So we have a lot of talent on our team. We need to keep it up to date. The threat landscape is changing. The approach, the attack vectors, they call, you know, by the bad guys are changing. So we need to keep up to date with the latest as much as we can to defend the network. So, and that includes the OT side. So OT is a little bit different in that, you know, the equipment's different. Some of the procedures are different. But a lot of things are the same. It's IP based. It has an IP address on it. You can reach it, they can reach it. So that we're doing a lot of training at the Stevens Institute, very well known for OT training. And that's basically us just making sure that the RMLD has traditionally done that investing in education. Sure that, you know, we have some great equipment. We know we need to know how to interpret what things mean, what threats mean, how to deal. That's all part of the education process. Some of the things that we're training on and retraining is things like digital forensics, which if an incident happens, how do you recreate what happened? How do you happen? That's where a lot of the forensics comes in. If we, you know, we're not, just like we had said in the CAB meeting, you know, we're not afraid of, in fact, it's encouraged. We have a third party come in, look at some of our environments and say, you know, hey, what does this look like to you? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? How can we do better? We get those assessments, we share the results, and then we remediate anything that, you know, that comes out of the fine. And that's our engagement with them. We don't necessarily have to do that, but it's a good idea because nobody's perfect. You want to get another set of eyes to take a look and say, you know, you may want to do this in your clients. It's an educational experience as well. So the team is engaged with the vendor and some knowledge transfer. So it's just a win-win for everyone. Now the second bullet item there is threat detection and remediation. You know, if you don't know what's happening, then so you want to be aware of what's happening, how to identify a threat, how to contain it, and how to stop the spread of something. That's not. That really just leads into vulnerability identification and management. We have systems that identify vulnerabilities, they get stored. And but if it's a high vulnerability, it's 24 hours to be either remediated or if sometimes if we have to accept the risk, then we're gonna try to contain that, our exposure. But that's important as well. It's a whole process that, you know, we get outside help for as well. CISA is a federal government agency that helps critical infrastructure with vulnerabilities and mediation steps, and that comes out for sometimes 5 times a day. Different industrial control system. They may not, you know, apply to us, but they have to be reviewed. But someone has to look at it and say, okay, do we have that equipment in the field, and do we have a risk? That is it for me. Thank you. And any questions?
Another comment, bringing the conversation to the cabinet, I think we did clarify some of the topics that we love to dig into a little bit more to public public forum, but I think it's a discussion of executive session to really dig into where the investments being made, where might there be gaps, where you have, you know, areas where we need some risk management discussions and
Any questions? Comments? Move on to the next slide.
I'm the bullet, I'm the director of the great business. Walking the central security. So I'll talk about the policy timeline. Very quickly, talk about our compliance with that policy. Walk you through some of the certificates and the value of those certificates, which is specifically how the landscape policy could be. The bill impacts policy for any changes. So from a policy standpoint, the renewable portfolio standard really started in 1998. It started in the Electricity Restructuring Act. That's what established the idea of the renewable portfolio standard, primarily for the investor-owned utilities. Then in 2003, the Department of Energy Resources promulgated the specific rules around the RPS. They created, you know, class 1, what we know now is class 1 energy certificates. This has been expanded by various law-making activities following that, including the 2008 Grid Review Act, which expanded the resources types that would provide compliance with the renewable portfolio standard and also increase those targets. And then not until 2021 was the law applied to, or this concept applied to municipal licenses. With the climate law, it did set a greenhouse gas reduction goals for MLPs, and they achieved that through the acquisition of certificates and retirements. Of course, the deadlines for the law are to be 50% carbon free by 2030, 75% carbon free by 2040, net zero by 2050. So this is when if you overlay what the renewable portfolio standard is applied to the investor-owned utilities, looks like compared to what the municipal light plant standard looks like. This is what it looks like in red. You see the steps function of our compliance, along with the gradual increase of the investor-owned utilities. As you can see, we are quickly catching up to where the investor-owned utilities are according to law. And you can see that where the green shows the renewable portfolio standard, meaning that the way to compliance is through actual renewable resources. And then the blue line kind of shows some of the alternative ways to comply with the law. And as you can see, as you go further out in the out years, there is some recognition that it's hard to get to the penetration of renewables necessary to achieve the target. So they have created different compliance standards with the reach. So there are different types of certificates. So we commonly hear renewable energy certificates, but there are different types. So if you look on the quadrant, the y-axis, you have if something has emissions associated with it, and along the x-axis, you have if it's classified as renewable. So there are some things that don't have emissions, like nuclear plants, large hydro. They do not emit anything, but they do, and they also are not renewable, but they generate a certificate as a result of the fact. On the renewable side, you do have some pure renewables like small hydro, solar, and wind. Those don't have any emissions. They also are considered renewable, so those are sort of the gold standard of compliance. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of those resources. There's not enough to meet compliance, and we are trying to encourage development of more of those, but it does have to do that. So that, and then you also have some things that that do emit, so but they are considered renewable, like gas, that's solid waste, and there are some other ways of complying with that, which reduce CO2 emissions significantly from conventional sources. So this is sort of if you look at value, the different types of value that is inherent in some of the certificates. The renewable certificates that are RPS class 1 certificates. These were designed to stimulate new renewable development. So if you build a new solar farm, you will get class 1 REC associated with that, and that's why the value of those RECs is the highest. If you have an existing small hydro plant, for example, they do create RECs also. Those are generally classified as class 2. Those are provided to resources that were already existing, but are also considered renewable. And then you have different levels. So, for example, in Massachusetts, we can comply with the climate law by main, so something that generates main class 2 renewables. Of course, those have a lower value in Massachusetts than they do than the mass class 2 renewables that are actually produced in Massachusetts. And then you can also comply with emission-free energy certificates. Those are ones that are created by either large hydro or nuclear plants. And those generally have the lowest value overall. But they do not have emissions associated with them. So they are paid to eliminate greenhouse gas emissions. And of course, each of these renewable energy certificates is generated when a megawatt hour of electricity is generated by an asset that fits one of these class categories. So you need to have a megawatt hour generation to meet that. That's pretty. This chart shows us how we've been managing our certificates. So the chart on the left shows the number of certificates that we've been retiring. So those are minted in the New England Power Pool GIS system, and they're minted and we retired them there. And they are color coded here. So the purple are effects generated by our nuclear portfolio. The blue are hydro generated by hydro contracts. The green are wind that are up and coming in our portfolio. The solar the yellow are solar, and then the red here is what we would need to obtain in the other years. And as you can see on the right-hand side, it shows the value of those certificates. So what is it costing, the ratepayers in RMLD service territory to retire those certificates? We are buying these certificates with the power that we buy. And if we choose to retire them, we're giving up that value, or we can sell them and offset some of the fuel costs that occur by buying them.
Well, let me understand this chart here. Right now, we're in 2023.
Yes.
Are the years that go forward from 2024 to 2034 projected numbers?
Yes.
So they were projected?
Yeah. So we projected based on what our contracts look like. So as you can see in 2020 through 2022, you see we had to retire some hydro to meet our compliance with the policy 30. But in 2022, we also added some nuclear to the portfolio. So we're able to count on that nuclear for compliance with the policy 30. We won't need to retire a hydro following the policy.
Well, the follow-up question is there any sort of percentage of total that these represent?
Well, this is what yes. So it's a complex forecast because we need to forecast what our load is going to be, which is also, it will depend on how many people buy EVs, how many people buy install air source heat pumps, and of course what the weather is for each of those years. So, but it is are you asking what percent will be retired?
Yeah, you're saying we're retiring these on this chart.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm wondering, is this 50% of the total?
Oh,
because we have.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But to give you an idea, in 2023, we retired 20%.
It increased essentially an incremental 3%
3%.
year over year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was our approach previously, which was a level balanced approach. So we didn't take a hit, ratepayers wouldn't take a massive hit. And the plan that was a very, that was one of the reasons why we have a balanced approach on that.
Yeah. Here's so this illustrates that. So the blue line, the blue bars are showing you what our retirements are, and that's in value. The cost of the RECs. The green show if we're selling those RECs what we believe they'll be worth. So as you can see, the cost has been $1 million or less over the last 7 years. But the value of the RECs exceeds that. It's between 2 and it will get up to $8 million a year.
So just important clarification. Bill mentioned, when we buy energy, we go where we possibly can. We buy certificates, we buy associate certificates, we don't buy the open market. We are very closely with the next 2 slides. We're very consistent. You see this green bar here, so we have purchased those. We purchased those into our fuel account, our energy. And then this green is where we sell it. So we actually sell it, we recover it by our staff. So it looks, the green here is on purpose, but it is reducing that cost of fuel and that cost of energy to our customers. It's not like, it's not new revenue, right? It's an expense that's recovered. So then one of the discussions we had a few months ago, and I'm sorry, we don't want to do this process here. A lot of details that we could do better. But net this is reducing the net cost of certificates, the cost of compliance to the cost. Bob mentioned we did 3 years ago, but it's original. We knew that the starting point from the state perspective was 20% on 20, 50% on 30. At that point in time, we said let's do so we don't do rates. The compliance obligation right now that we are currently under in the state law that Bill mentioned that red set bar. We don't have a compliance obligation from the state perspective until 2030. But we made the decision, the group was to increment at 30% over 10 years, 3%. This chart here basically is the world in the past 2 years has changed massively, partially due to COVID, but also due to the war in Ukraine and the fact that LNG, so now natural gas is transportable across the ocean. There are a whole bunch of factors that have turned the market upside down, in addition to the 2025 bill, which is now still mandates in place in terms of accelerate not carbon decarbonization. So all these factors come into play. The key thing that I want to be sure that should give is that the green money is money spent and then covered itself. And of course, we sell certificates, as we pointed out earlier, but no longer is sort of compliance obligation. Just a big picture. So we have our internal compliance obligation. And I mentioned it's 2023, and then we'll talk a little longer. Few minutes to the next slide. Current plan is going to be 2% in 2024. And on part of the discussion, I do want to adjust this. But I want to give you an idea for 92. We're not talking about the $1,000 anymore. We're talking about before 2020, 2021 period, all certificates are sold. So now we're in the process of retiring. It's we're kind of net cost. Good news is, maybe the next few years, it's not.
Why is the blue dip so significant? In 2023 and almost negligible.
So that goes back to the fact that we had some hydro in 21 and 22 that we had to that we retired. And I don't yeah. So the business value, so we're retiring more $2 certificate in 2023 on and fewer of the $10
Or the 24 or 30.
To look at that, you're showing the volume and then you're showing the dollar, right? But the volume is going up every year, but because you're selling the cheaper one, it's the dollar value.
We retired. Retired.
Retiring.
Oh, right. And selling the more valuable. It's a part of the original plan.
Right.
That's why it goes down.
So the question is, I'm in that program that they actually,
That's another one.
what effect does that have? You know,
It should reduce it. Well, so it, what effect is?
yeah, I did 100%.
Oh, yeah. So what we did, we basically put the baseline program increased 3% each year. And then we put in place, as part of the policy 30, a renewable choice program, which allowed people to opt in to, instead of being removed at the start, it was 23%, 26%, but to go either 50%, 75%, 100%. So we would collect additional dollars tied to the kilowatt hour sales, so it's tailored to whatever you use it for. We would collect that pot of money, and instead of selling those certificates, we would take that pot of money and retire those certificates that were associated. Right now, the programs aren't very big, right? There's not a lot of participants, so we're literally in the tens of certificates that we're retiring each year. But at the end of the day, it will allow you or some of the corporate customers to get whatever targets they have, in the 50% level, 75% level, or 100%. So it doesn't, in the big scheme, it doesn't move the financial needle right now. But for those that want to participate, it's an mechanism to be.
It's not that well participation, you're saying?
Correct.
Can we do more to pump this thing up?
In terms of more promotion, yeah, yes, that's one of the things that we want to, yes, we can.
I think that they talked about that very frequently and then so.
No, I'm also in the same camp as you, okay, so I'm also in the same choice.
Yeah.
And I think your question for selling, I think there is a choice for customers. You do not want, you don't care about, you know, who are sensitive about the amount of carbon associated with that. They have the choice to join. Okay. That is the choice today. And I think this is something I mentioned in the cabinet. This is a communication issue. Okay. pricing of rates going forward? Because historically, when we talk about rates, we usually talk about the rate increase in market. Right now, we have a clear line of sight as to how rates are likely to go up to 2030. And it's a very good way of saying to our customers that we have a choice of keeping rates low and shocking them in 2029, 30, or gradually increasing it like this. And if they really care about 100% renewable, they can do that today. So I think it will give them a choice and communicates them to them. So I don't know if that serves your.
Depending on you about it.
No, so I said it's a communication issue.
Nobody notified, and that's my point.
Yeah, so it's a communication issue, so I think we can just, there's many to.
I think
It's a very, not up to talk, but I think usually the wrong word, but they tell them, been beating that drum for years. And wants everybody involved with that program, it's very popular. And it's, you're paying more, there's a lot of people, I don't want to, I mean, just being straight honest, some people would like to participate in that.
Just so you know, so there is, we churn about a ton, so we have 32,000 units in our territory. Given the primarily the department, but the churn of customers is about 500 accounts per month. The one of the things that we do have a script for the customer service reps, every time somebody new, we walk them through the renewable choice program. But that's a small portion. We have not, we do on a quarterly basis, we do a webinar, it's very well attended, and played back many times. And we've done a lot of work, doing several sessions on air source heat pumps, they're very good. I'll have you walk you through the air source heat pump program, but we are 2 to 3 times higher than any of the other NLP in terms of our air source heat pump program. Very proud of it. The point being is that we use our webinar program to promote the programs. We have not in picking up on your recommendation. We have done a webinar on renewable choice as a method. We have put it in newsletters at least once each year, the past year, but maybe we should do it, every other time. So I think there's ways for us to do more communication. Well, that's a fair statement, and just the prompt here that and maybe we can because it's worked well on air source heat pumps. It's one of the reasons that government program was one of the reasons why our programs really good. Now rebates are among the 2 highest rebates for air source heat pumps. Mass is a very different program. We'll talk about that. We talked about that in the past. We'll talk about that. So I think back to your renewable choice, back to the best on it, customers do have the ability to do it. We can and will do a better job. And that's a good recommendation.
And I always say having low rate is a great way. If people can save money, switch oil and natural gas. That's great.
We've done a lot of analysis, and we're doing more and more actual analysis of actual customers. We have over 1,200. But actually, so there's the industry data, which basically shows that the operating costs of air heat pumps is lower than natural gas. And of course, is the initial capital investment. So for somebody that's in a process of it needs to replace their furnace, typical furnace at 20 years, those are ideal customers. That works out to be our territory. About 1,200 customers per year are buying furnace. And of those, 4 right now are buying heat pumps. So I think we know how to do a pretty good job on heat pumps. I think that they do a similar piece in terms of and over time, as you guys will see in some of the discussion, right, as we increase the retirement rate of certificates over time, then that incremental difference, the incremental cost of renewable choice gets 50%, 75, it's smaller and smaller. So that might be another mechanism that's one of the takeaways from the CAB meeting for that should be part of the communication as well. That it becomes less expensive to just pay for it. We have to keep that.
So, the hypothetically, which was put to the bar, on the chart, the very same taxes are about $400,000. What if you were to shop the system, retired $2 million worth? How much of that?
I think I've done it for putting this presentation together. I think this slide is the most important slide. All the rest, like a great presentation. This is, yeah, really good.
So there are a lot of numbers here across so we go from 24 and we're projecting out to 2029. The first line is the percent of renewables or non-emitting contracts that we have for power supply. These are with the certificates. That we can either sell and retire. The second line is the current policy 30. So you can see we increase the percent we're retired by 3% a year. Next year it'll be 32%. This year it was 29%. The average bill is below. You can see each year it's going to go up by factors, including the energy market, our current inflation, our cost structure. And then if we look at the second line below current retirement rate, so it shows that's what the average customer's bill using 820 kilowatt hours per month would be for a residential customer. If you retired 3% incrementally more, it would go up by a relatively small amount, $59, 20% increase. And then if you the third line down shows if you retired all the available certificates, it would go up $265. So it's several dollars. So what we did is per month, yes. The percent in the increase is shown in red. So it ranges from 3.1% in 2024 to a high of 4.22% in 2026. That would be the overall impact on the bill. So that would be, a rate increase on top of any other rate increases that we were expecting. So it's within, if the world doesn't end, right? But it does have an impact on bills.
Put differently, you can increase the effective non-carbon energy by about 125%, or about 3% rate.
Yes, yeah, that's good.
From where we are.
More than that. And have we done an analysis or assessment on where that would place the first together?
The average rate. Oh,
Where would that place us in terms
I think it wouldn't move us too far beyond the minimum that we're already in.
stay in the middle of that?
We'd say probably not higher than.
I'm saying that we do have other. It should trend of other MLPs following different practices.
All of them fall into practice, but I'm not going to and
2024.
So 2024 right now, we're in the middle of the group. If we were to go to say, if we were to transition, say we're going to retire all of our certificates, we would be a development boundary from MLPs.
Right.
Well, I'm looking at 71%.
So the top three in terms of the.
Percentage, not in the dollars, in terms of, so it's again,
Right.
fair question, depends on the metric, but if you want to do, percent not carbon, which is what that blue line is the proxy, there are a few MLPs that buy certificates on the open market and retire.
Right.
And that's one strategy. The strategy that is an expensive strategy, and for those that do that, their rates are 30% higher than ours, all types of certificates.
So the top three that you're referencing is non-target, not.
Correct. So that is in terms of being like 71.
I was trying to.
Both
Both are important.
cost,
But
cost is another, so there's a cost to do it. We are in a very advantageous position to do more retirements for minimum cost, given our portfolio. Right? It depends on what the goal is, right? You know, remember, we set out earlier this year, like, the strategy, we also set our mission, very straightforward, right? Reliable first, keep the lights on, low cost, manage total cost for our customers, and then non-carbon, which is the combined factor, in that order environment. But what we have done over the past 2 years of restructuring our policy by portfolio, it's not given us responsibility to make a decision. I mean, we put this in place, Paul mentioned, 3 years ago, before the law was even enacted. We learned, all of us have learned a lot since then, and the world has changed massively since then. So we're in a little different position. So, you know, if you look at the numbers that go to shores, right? I think like if we were to do something very simple, instead of doing 32% in 2024, we would say this, but it's, and Gino had mentioned this a year ago and said, hey, let's review this on an annual basis. What we're doing. You know, the incremental cost is very small. And it wouldn't be that way. You can look at it in 2024, it'd be 159 already versus 158.85, 23 cents, right? And then in 2025, 172.87 versus 173.10. So that's another, 20, that's 23 cents there. But that's just, that's just a moving forward one round.
Right. So I guess I just want to make sure I'm super clear on the answer to my core question, which was moving from 159 as an average bill to 165 as an average bill. Where does that place us in the cost versus other?
In terms of the cost, our rates would still be significantly below the top guys that are retiring.
Really, so we don't move the needle in terms of where we fall versus others.
Just because, honestly, I want to be sure you're talking. So if we wanted to go to 71%, then we would be amongst the top 2-3 other NLPs that are a high percentage of non-carbon in the portfolio. Because they
I'm just talking about cost.
Okay, so I just
Only cost. Because I want to make sure it's not confusing for folks that are listening.
So what we did run the analysis on, so, if we were to do that in 2024, we would end up at what, $165, just let's be real good. So that's, so 165 of 825. That'll put us at roughly 20 cents a kilowatt hour. The guys in the top 2 spots are at 24, 25 cents, 26 cents a kilowatt hour. So we would still be less than them, and they're in the range of 75%. So again, it's a very different strategy. We're going to go in place to do that. So that's just to give you an idea, 20 to 25 cents to meet the same non-carbon. Now that 20% is, that's basically equivalent from 18 cents roughly to 20 cents. So, again, the metric we're looking at, what we try and do is always look at what's an average bill. People pay average bills. But the rates are.
Yeah, that's why I'm just trying to make sure.
Does that help you?
Specific rate. I understand that apples and oranges because what we're talking about is,
all the data.
71% portfolio versus the 32% portfolio are different. But just looking at the bottom line of the big bill, that's going to place them in the same place aesthetically versus other MLPs versus IOUs. And we're not talking about changing where we fall in terms of other MLP rates. We're talking about 3% change.
I'll put us in 6.
Middle of the pack when it comes to cost only, but obviously it's an apple and orange because then you're talking about more than double like fair. You're not. Yeah, I wonder if we have an opportunity to, I know we're going to talk about policy, but I know we also next month will look at it and finalize.
Yeah,
budget.
I think.
I wonder if we have an opportunity to look at where the budget is landing and what our flexibility might be to go further from it. Yeah.
If I may recommend on that, I think this is good to walk you through for the next week. Since we're going to talk about.
Sorry, Greg, can I interrupt? Dave Talbot just entered the Zoom meeting. Yep, Dave, can you hear us? He's connected and muted, so he can likely hear us.
I actually think that we're gonna do, based on the discussion that.
Hey, Dave Talbot here. I just calling you. Just want to let you know I'm here.
Thank you, Dave.
We wanted, so at the request of Monday, we want to talk about this session, and there's a lot more here than time to walk through. Based on the discussion at CAB, there's probably some additional analysis. We'll take this table and refine it just a little bit. And it goes back to combining, sorry, Bill had talked about the purple bars on this line. And we will also, so yes, I'll be coming back in the November meeting.
You're really prepared.
As we keep going forward in time, we have to get a little better snapshot of what the power supply costs are going to be. So the trend line, and we do an update Monday of every week. So this Monday's update is continuing there. It is forecast to be a milder winter this winter. Milder winter means lower demand, which means lower rate. There's an excess of supply. So we expect that the numbers that we had forecasted, back in the end of September, that we use in October and November, the power supply of all of those numbers will be lower. And I think what we'll lay out, we'll do as we promised, we'll give our best. Again, we're forecasting the future. Our energy, not our power supply, our pass through. So there is there might be an opportunity for us to do something more dramatic. We'll present the numbers, and the way we operate. Week 9, represent the I think there might be. I think we're in a very unique position right now. That's what CAB had suggested. Well, not just what happens in 24, 25, but it's what happens in 29, 30. So we have not perfect, right? No respect to crystal ball for the future. But we look constantly at trend lines, and our data analysis is really that we've gotten much more granular than ever been, which is great. So I think we'll be able to present some interesting numbers to say, hey, let's pick up, we'll expand this table a little bit, make it a little bit easier to understand. But we wanted to first give you an idea of the order of magnitude. It used to be certificates were, $7 million. But you can see from the stuff, we're talking, $2 to $8 million on power supply budget. That's $60 million. It's not trivial anymore. And when we go further out, that number is going to continue. Right? So it's an important decision. Like, we want to walk you through the process, et cetera. But I think we'll probably make a recommendation to that time out. We can do more than our current strategy.
Yeah, well, I just, bottom line, it's a 50% increase in 5 years on your bill, right? And that's why we went with that ladder approach. If you look at 244 to 159, $85, it's a 50% increase on your bill.
Yeah, and that includes all that's exactly right.
So you can't, and every year you have to remember that it's a.
Oh, you're exactly right.
Without the retirements and taking a laddered approach limits that cost that you're gonna feel in your pocket every year. And if we increase that now, that that number at the end is even gonna be higher. It's
and so that's and the table supposed to give you the sense of that 2029. So the increment. So depending on the procedure, decision that what you guys are guidance. But in 2029, we're looking at 252 versus 244. Because remember, the 244 assumes additional usage, right? Additional adoption of UCS or costs and cost and wholesale power and certificates.
But I mean, I think that a baseline, we're assuming a 3%. Yeah, which is I think a conservative amount and approach. I get that.
But that's the number. That's the red number.
That's right. And it could be a lot higher. I just feel if we're more aggressive and higher, that final number could be a lot higher for.
I know. So I think that you ask a question. I mean, some have a lot of ideas, some have a lot of. So what I think we have to do is, we can see where we are with others, but what we really have to think about is a choice to God's point is how much you want to retire. That should be the decision. You know, I mean, compared to IOUs, we actually know what our contracts are going to be. So the hedging gives us good visibility for the next so many years. So we have a good sense of what the path is and what the form of choices we have. We have some choices. So I think what RMLD should decide in my recommendation is what is the phone I want to work with? Do I want to be all retiring or not? Right? Do I want to have a laddered approach or not? We should worry too much about others because the cost of energy that's going to go into this is going to be pretty much the same for everyone else. It's based pretty much on natural gas prices, right? I mean, natural gas prices are or whatever the fuel, whatever the basis for the fuel cost, you're getting that energy cost from E&E and other sources.
Yeah, and so I think, and we'll do that last slide. I think historically, because our open market position was much larger. And the average is 50 to 55% of energy generated is natural gas. That's a fair statement. What we've done, so you're exactly right. Because we moved our hedge up to 85%, and this year because the load is a little lower, and we had that, so probably at 9% relatively, which means, and a portion of it is natural gas, but you'll see in a few slides, you'll see it, we'll show you. Our open market position, our natural gas position is really low. It goes back to the question that what you were talking about at the CAB meeting, which is, hey, but once you go to that slide. So we want to take this slide and turn it into not just a mix, so actually by category, and then we'll have the analysis of what looks like by certificates, but also then the prompt that you gave to us, what's the greenhouse gas footprint? Because you'll see the edits, and you'll see that as well. The revision that we want to make for policy 30 simply to the Polish. We'll walk you through that kind of stuff. But we have a really strong greenhouse gas story, like really strong. And so I think the point being is natural gas is a much smaller part of our portfolio, but back to the point, not everybody's portfolio is different. And depending upon when they do the contracts, if you're in an open market position, it's a totally different game. It's more likely to have a use because they are on 6-month contracts. So our supply compared across MLPs is very difficult because everybody's portfolio is different. We tend to be very active, and we have an in-house team and have had an in-house team that focuses on power supply. It's very unique, very few, like one-on-one has a team like we have, not even the team that we have place. So, and the point being is that it's hard to compare across MLPs in terms of cost structure. We can look at where we are, but the different scales, etc. So, in back to when we put the data together in terms of how we're going together, it's kind of interesting. But they go to the question, go back to the boxes, what trend line look like? I think the incremental piece that we as we take those numbers and put them behind it, the incremental top of the retirement won't be quite as big as they would have been 3 years ago. When there was less understanding of what the market is, in terms of the value of certificates and cost.
About 80% of the already contract effect, 80% of the contract.
Well, but I think what's important though is in the context of the comparison, it's again our mission, right? Reliable, low cost, non-carbon. Low cost is
relative.
It is relative because we know that there are laws that are requiring change and that are driving costs up. Fundamentally, we recognize that. And so then the question is, can you create a different balance between cost and non-carbon, like keeps low cost and achieve more on non-carbon? That's the question, right?
That is the strategy discussion.
Yeah.
That is the exact question that we've answered by laying out, here's the strategy going forward in territory generation and a mix of inter.
Right.
We're exactly.
Right, and I think it's that going back to that, my favorite chart, it's not a one or the other question, right? It's not a current strategy or all, right? Just hypothetically, not saying that because, but hypothetically, what would it cost if we hit the goal 6 years early? But it may cost $1, right? We don't know, we didn't run the numbers, right? But those, you probably, but don't decide it, I'm sure, but.
Can you go back to the?
That's where I think as we look at the budget numbers again in January and update the projections and see what that means. So I think we just want to understand or decide where that places the sequence of rate increases and what options we might have to do a little bit more on our current side to maintain the cost.
We will give you a little more detail behind what this chart is intended to do. You look at 2029. If we continue down the current path of retirement, which is to 50% by 2030, it would be $244, including all the retirements. If we decided to go to 70%, so on an incremental 22%, right? That works out to be, that's what that number is, 2.74%, and the difference between the two can be a portion of delta number. The 244 versus 252. So that delta is to give you that's a pretty good estimate of the order of magnitude of the increase that we've been tied to just changing the retirement rate from 50 to 72%. Following? The incremental cost to go 50% to 72% for right now the portfolio, that's all we have.
It's 2029.
It's 2029, but trying,
Yeah.
this chart. So we'll put more detail behind it because I'm more interested in, I'm not more interested, like back to Marlena's comment, which is we, our defect position right now at 24, 25, and 26 is going to give us a very inexpensive way to increase our retirement rate with minimal cost. But I'm saying, hey, great, but make sure, and the rec profits out as well. Make sure you look at 2029. This question you asked, but just so you have a sense right now, that order of magnitude in 2029, we're looking, what's the difference there, right? It's $8, right? That's incremental change, which is 3%. But so that's big picture. I just want to make sure there's a little bit more analysis because we want, but not for the sake of analysis, but that's the order of magnitude that we're looking at based on our portfolio.
Again, right, in 2029. I'm sort of just looking at 2024 and saying, hypothetically, like the number of 50%. It could be $2.
So I mean, the number of 50%, so so
175, we go from 170 to 160.
that's 150, 165. So we'll build this out for you so we have a consensus.
I think that's just my question. As we think about the rates and January. How does that compare to what we agreed to in September? And then what was the different kind of step function point? 40%, 50%, 60%.
We will finish that analysis now. That's part of the research.
Yes, I think your policy advice is what you can do is do an analysis for what does the cost of 50% be across the board. So you could add one goal which will show at 50% because that's the 2020 number. That if you are getting to the 2020 number today, that's what would cost, right? And that will be the number. So it shows that's the cost each year. But each year the cost goes up because the cost of anything.
And the other thing that we look at forecast on, so it's the cost of certificates. I mean, we, and well as they'll show this slide, right? Everybody has to be better compliance obligations. Now we have a market where RPS was very small, big dollars. So that $8 million number we have in 2029, we'll show you, we'll get a little sample for like in 2045. It's approaching $40 million just for compliance. I mean,
It's our budget.
right, today, well, I just 6 million, but exactly, yeah.
And think about that, that's a percent of everything, that's the same. Well, that's crazy, but that's what's on the table. The market, things are gonna change over time,
Right, so, but the good news, right, and what you guys pointed out, right, reinforced, right, and I'm saying it's tonight. What's this, what's the strategy of that look like to minimize that impact, so that we, keep lights on, keep that low cost driver, and so that's why we're doing all these, I'll call crazy ideas, but that's why we're being this very innovative, because it's very clear what's coming down the road. Is it 42 million, is it 50 million, 30 million, I don't know, but it's not a small number, it's not $200,000. So all the things that we're trying to put in place, forecast what the load is, the adoption of EVs, the SRC funds, our load is going to be 2x what it is, right? How do we serve that 2x load in context of compliance obligations that are $40 or something? The big numbers, right?
But in the end, right, this is a good place to be where we have more certificates and we build a significant carbon portfolio. Slide was that we have all this carbon power supply contracted. We're looking for more, but we know our load is going to grow in time. And we're trying to do it in a cost-effective way. But you know, I think it's a big problem that we have to try to decide to do whether to retire or sell, go to Rex and put the 10 thoughts. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're. Oh. Any thoughts?
Can you just, only acronym or abbreviation, I don't know, is TFA, what is that?
Oh, sorry, that's a contract for from a power marketer for a long-term contract, power supply. And typically that is part that's just from the open market.
What does the actually stand for?
Transaction facility agreement. It was put in place in 2018, when the market was very stable. And it basically forecasted load and price and tried to secure short-term contracts when the prices were low or we were short power, like, and as you remember, like, we had a summer peak and then we dropped down. So it was a nice package that worked well when prices were very stable. We have not done a TFA, and it would go out for 5 years. It would do the analysis about 5 years. Very nice program back in the time. But since we're in a market of up until recently, dramatically increasing unit prices, we used to be, you know, in the mid $30 per megawatt hour. We're now open market is in the mid 60, you know, $60 to $70 a megawatt hour. That's the average. That model doesn't work anymore. So we have not done a TFA contract in almost 20 months. And the ones that you see here are ones that we did in 2021 or 2020, a little bit in 2021, and then backwards. And so they're all kind of tapering out. But to answer your question, the TFA is looks more like mixed, but because, you know, we have an obligation. I have an obligation to report TFAs to the commissioner on a quarterly basis. You know, we always put this in here, but the program is basically because the market has changed.
Okay. Well,
No, you, okay.
you said, good more example, you got more percent?
No. Great thing for them.
So we've taken some action items between the CAB and this meeting. So we'll finish and make some recommendations of analysis to our retirement. Hopefully this is helpful. And then I know Commissioner Talbot's online too. We didn't walk through all the slides, but there were some questions specific to what process, the process associated with certificates. So there's some slides that we've done earlier, a year or two ago, and then some updated ones that are pretty. They kind of walk through acquisition and disposition of certificates. So we understand what happens.
One question on that is, in the case where we're generating the non-carbon energy in territory, we're still having to purchase the certificate. for that?
Well, if we own the asset, we will mint it ourselves, so
Right.
we would be the generator. We would mint it
So
on our own behalf.
assuming we aren't, so we could generate those tickets and sell them, or we could just.
We could keep them and then retire.
Right.
Hey, all, I heard my name mentioned. I'm having a hard time following the meeting. It's just kind of dim, but maybe it's me.
So, Dave, the key point was, in the slide that we won't walk through the details today, but you had some very specific questions, over the past several meetings in terms of the process flow associated with certificates. So deeper in the slide deck, there are some, and we can walk through those in more detail, in the next meeting or offline, whatever, but, we wanted to make sure that we were responsive to some of the requests that you had in terms of how the mechanisms work.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry I'm a bit out of commission. I had a family emergency, so I'm in a waiting room right now. So just kind of not all there, but I wanted to be part of the discussion if I could. So I think the questions I had were, and tell me if you've already covered this, is kind of understanding what is the process by which we dispose of them, and who handles that for us, or do we do it directly, and who acquires them? And I just would like somehow to have more visibility around, like, where do they go when we sell them? Like, who is it? Eversource buying them, or it's other MLPs? And I just think that's kind of interesting to know. So go ahead.
On that very topic, I can't remember what slide it is, but there are 2 slides that talk about that whole process.
Okay.
And since you're, given the scenario, right, it'd be helpful to kind of walk you through those.
Yep.
Next meeting or offline. So, but yes.
Okay.
Those questions were heard and
okay.
We laid that out for you. So
great. Okay, thank you. So we're probably good for tonight, right? I'm not really participating very meaningfully right now, but I'm sorry, are we voting on something relative to this tonight, or are we just getting a tutorial?
I think the presentation Bill presided is a tutorial.
Okay.
We have some very specific recommendations on modifying policy 30. We can choose to vote on it. You guys can choose to vote on it tonight or just digest. There's a lot here. We've done some red lines coming out of the Citizen Advisory Board meeting that are not right now. And we did some red lines earlier today based on on a whole bunch of other factors. Anyways, so
I'd certainly be in favor of waiting. It's like, because I have, so that we have a chance to, or certainly that I would have more of a chance to look at all this and speak more intelligently at the next meeting, if that's okay with everybody, or not vote on them tonight.
I'll present it, but you can vote, and then you'll get the final updated one, and then you can vote next month. That's totally fine with us.
I think where Dave cannot be here, and I think he's a very important part of this. That we can have the presentation, but we probably should come back to this next month.
Agreed.
Go back through it again. Okay.
Right. Maybe I'll just take let me just take one moment and walk you guys through some of the red lines. We got a copy of these in the package that Erica sent out, and Erica, we should probably send this piece out. I don't know how we have to figure out the proper mechanism, but this is an update of the package that you guys received on Monday. So if you scroll down, so this basically in the normal, so big picture. What we've done is we walked through policies, and we have a procedure. We have a policy of reviewing policies every 3 years. And so this one is up for renewal, and time is good, and Marlene has asked us to look at it carefully. So in your package, there was the summary of all the changes that were made. There was the clean copy and the red line copy. This is a clean copy with some additions that were made since the package, right? And so what all the other changes we made, we basically streamlined it. A lot of the stuff that was, not a lot of it, but the preamble is covered elsewhere, right? We're trying to help policies focus on a particular piece and not, rehash, who RMLD is, what they do, right? You cover that elsewhere. So we stripped all that out. But here, this B and C are 2 additions that we spent some time refining, and we want you guys to take a look at as well. And we're doing this for a whole bunch of reasons, but this is to reflect what we are physically doing right now as an organization. And as you guys know from all the different meetings, we are actively trying to figure out how to fulfill that mission of reliable, low cost, non-carbon and in territory is a piece of that. So what we put in here, right, the Commonwealth has greenhouse gas goals, right? And that was part of the 2021 climate bill, which follows context. But B talks about, right, so this is this is, again, a policy that we want to state, but this is how we're acting. RMLD is committed to the Commonwealth's goals for greenhouse gas reduction, and will continue, right, so we support the goals that they're trying to put in place, and we'll continue to implement changes to support those goals in the context of our customer obligations, right, and our RMLD mission. As part of that, right, we will spend, we're already doing this, right? Both those, we will stay informed of legislative and regulatory changes specific to greenhouse gas emissions. This is a very dynamic space right now. It's accelerating, particularly given the COP 28 piece of what happened yesterday. C talks about things that we're actually talking about and doing, a part of our strategy. RMLD will continue to improve its utility operations, and the intention there is not just power supply, to include power supply, but all the operations to support the Commonwealth goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. RMLD has a unique mix of location, right? We're north of Boston, the intersection of 93 doesn't say that part, data doesn't say that part, but location, geography, and demographics. Given this context, RMLD will apply its unique capabilities, our scale, scope capabilities as an organization, our mix of our supply portfolio, our geographic reach, to proactively explore and implement new programs and new technologies to contribute to the reduction of greenhouse gas in its operation as an electric utility. So power supply, it's our rate structure, it's our incentive programs, it's our transition to, electric PTOs on our trucks, electric pickup, all these things go into, and one of the requests, then I'll go to this next piece, that the CAB through the actually proposed that let's put into our website, let's track for us as an organization, but what's our carbon footprint, what's our greenhouse gas emissions? So we have to work through what the right metric is. But again, we are in a very good position. We have a very good story back to the whole communication piece. So we have not done a very good job of communicating, right? So we need to do a better job, but we have to put the metrics in place. So those are the two pieces, B and C. And then if you scroll down to the attachment, please. Those two pieces weren't in your package. And then this was the recommendation that came directly out of the CAB an hour ago. And so this attachment is meant to be a synthesis of the key elements of the legislation that was passed 3 years ago. And so we're not, our goal is not to rewrite this because we're not writing legislation, but we made our first cut at this. And so you'll get a copy of this Becky in the CAB, but we added that red text, right? So you guys will remember this, the legislation says non-meeting is defined as, and it goes through, 1 through 10, right? And we made a note that we weren't going to do wood burning biomass, right? We did that 3 years ago. But the other thing, so the other thing was 11, and other generation qualifying in special cases for this legislation. So there's a whole paragraph in this part of the legislation that talks about other novel ideas that could get passed. And so what was prompted, and so this is our first step of that. Note that RMLD will explore other generation technologies that are compliant with, and this is where it sits in the law, right? We call it the 21 climate bill, but it's Mass General Law and the right signals, chapter 25A, section blah, blah, blah. Including carbon capture fuel cells, hydrogen systems, low temperature geothermal. So those are things that we're specifically looking at. Including it in the text here is a set of stage that we're trying to explore new technologies. And if it worked, great. But we recognize the fact that we're not changing legislation, but if they fit under legislation specifically 11, then we're basically making a conscious effort to explore those kind of policy. So you can take a look at that later on, but that's I think we took what you suggested and put that in.
Thank you, because this telegraphs to the state that they're trying to do something, maybe get us some more funding from the state for having
The problem is you've got these changes in there now. We haven't seen them in advance. I haven't even seen that, quite frankly, right now, to be honest with you. I know I'm old, but I've never seen.
So back to Dave's request and your agreement, we're going to postpone this one. I just wanted to make sure that because we've got some input from the CAB, and this is why when we talk about schedules, we're trying to get back into the mode where we meet with the CAB and review, and we're kind of out of it. Let's say it works. So we're trying to keep this ball moving forward. And so these, you will get copies of these, and you'll be able to see them in print, et cetera.
Right.
We won't vote on them tonight, but I wanted you all to see, this is like we are doing stuff to focus on, not just to be compliant with non-carbon, but to go after greenhouse gases. And we don't have it all figured out, but we are actively trying to find a plan, because nobody's got this figured out. We're trying to learn from everybody else. And so this is big. Like, we want to take this policy when we go and talk to the legislature, just like Vivek mentioned. Like, we have meetings scheduled next week. So we don't have this policy as it's set, but we're gonna go back to, like, not only are we doing these things, but this is our policy. This is what the commissioners have charged us to do. And it's supportive of what the Commonwealth is trying to do. And so we are beginning to get a reputation of being, once again, the innovators that are trying to move the field. We're a microcosm of the state. We're trying to figure the solution out in the world where the answers aren't obvious. You can't just go on item ABC off the shelf 1, 2, 3. But I'll leave it at that. We'll push this to the next meeting, but that's the context I want you guys to understand.
One thing that stuck out to me, I'm looking at item C, where it says the board may vote on changes from time to time at a frequency note to exceed.
Not, yeah.
Is that spelled?
Yes.
Not a problem.
Not to exceed, yeah. Good, so we'll prove it.
I mean, we should have some time circle, so the board has to review this, not from town to town.
Well, I think it was intended, so again, this is a policy that was put in place, right? It was to not exceed 3 years. Right?
Does that mean we can update it more often? Sure. Year.
That's why I wrote options.
It was a little benefit of no more than every 3 years, so probably just.
That's what I'm saying, so maybe it's like a certain time, the board has to do this.
Yeah, and the only reason I think so, and this was you've got more history than any of us.
Yeah.
But
Otherwise, I'm old.
No, but the point being is that you understand directly that, the agenda, we only have so much time each meeting, and things come up that we need to address. So we might be 39 months or 40 months as opposed to 36 months. Honestly.
Yeah, do you want me to add to this?
Yeah, right.
So yeah, basically from my understanding is for all board policies, you have to review it every 3 years. Even if you don't make any changes, you just look at it. But if you want to change any of them prior to that 3 years, totally fine.
And we're in this business all the time, so we're prompting some of these policy changes, right? We bring them to you guys, but that's how we think about it. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So, to your point, and Mary Ellen's point, on my red line 1, that this change is made, section B with the RMLD Board of Commissioners responsibilities is completely crossed out. Right? Have that correctly?
Your responsibility is to create policy.
But it doesn't state.
Yeah, but so we're gonna review policy 19 in January, February, which walks through all the responsibilities of commissioners. Instead of having it, like, we have 33 policies, and they're not internally consistent. So we're gonna basically say in policy 19, this is the responsibility you guys have. One of them is going to be reviewing policy. So instead of going to each policy, just like we took the preamble out, like it says.
Right, I read your notes on what.
This preamble is different than the other
Reduce
preamble.
redundancy.
Well, it's not, it's also inconsistency. So what we're trying to do is streamline, like, in all the different procedures we have here, there's one master copy of, here's the responsibilities, here's power supply, here's drug policy. I mean, all these different pieces, and the problem is right now, they're not all internally consistent. So we get on a regular basis, it says this there over here and that over there. I like this better than that one. So, and again, you guys, like, I serve at the pleasure of, right? So I need you guys to provide policy guidance and direction. You guys have charged me and the rest of the team to make this stuff happen. So we'll take a look at that. But our goal is to put that in a different section, so it's very clear.
Leave it as a policy, correct? Which we looked at, let's see.
Yeah.
12 months ago.
We haven't done the roles of the commissioners, did we?
We might have looked at policy 19, but we didn't really dig into it. And what we found when we were looking at, I think it was this one actually, was like in policy 19, it was like RMLD reports this to the board quarterly, but then like policy, another policy like this one said monthly. So they weren't consistent. So we really need to dig deep into 19 and kind of get it straight.
I think you guys understand why you guys working it out for a while, right? There's a lot of communication going on, but we need the policies or something actually. And make adjustments as appropriate. Yeah, I look to you guys for, hey, good guardians. So, yes, but it's not gonna be, I mean, let's put it in a policy, it's my recommendation. You guys can say, hey, I want to do it differently, that's totally fine. But simplicity.
Well,
Yes, sir.
you have procurement steps.
Yes, so procurements.
Now, I want to mention one thing. Mary Ellen mentioned about trees. And it just occurred to me, when she was here before, talking about this, she mentioned some organization that involved. So I don't know if you have any information on that, on which there was some organization that she recommended to us. I don't remember if there's any back information.
I actually have quite a bit of research on show report on trees.
Okay.
Right, and I want to do it in the context of our responsibility to provide reliable, low cost, non-carbon energy, first and foremost, reliability. And big picture, our tree trimming program is to trim growth. That's what we are charged with, so that in the case of storms, wind, like we were very fortunate this past the wind and rain was much lower than forecasted last Sunday night. But we're a data-driven organization. The frequency of outages due to trees in Reading is twice what it is in the other territories. That is driven by the challenge that tree warden, and I said this in public section before, to slow us in terms of trimming trees to the detriment of outages and the beginning of safety of our communities and the public. So while I am very respectful of trees, honestly, and we have a program where we actually, but we have money in the budget to do tree planting programs to replace trees. There's a balance, and we're out of balance right now. Well, we'll come back and talk more about that with data. Okay. Okay. Transformers. So the particular one is relative to pole mounted single phase transformers. This is a bid that we sent out back in August. We received bids from 5 different providers. The one that we wanted to choose was NBA Power Transformer. We've talked about these in the past. We actually had ordered at a trial basis earlier this year based on an April bid process that we went through. NBA is a Canadian company that actually has production in China. We prefer more domestic, but in this current world of limited availability and long duration and expense, primarily duration of transformers. Again, with the approval of the board, we made a small order of transformers that came from NBA. They arrived a few weeks ago. We have mounted a few of them. We ordered. We ended up taking an order of 52. We tested 20 of them. They all look to be high quality, but we won't really know for 15 or 20 years. And so based on our initial inspection and our need to continue to fill our pipeline of transformers, we want to make an order. We need to make an order of transformers. The recommendation is to order another set of transformers from MD Power, different categories. That's another set. But we did a trial order. It looked good, and so we'll do another order to MD Power transformers, which happen to be the shortest and least expensive and fully compliant with our requirements. So that's the context and background of these single phase pole transformers requested for them to as a result of the August the process and the out.
Read the motion.
The other companies, do a less, that could meet the same time frame. Switchgear US LLC. Those are US based companies. The other one looks like Irby. Couldn't do it, but the other two, you know, where are they at? That were.
Well, the ULS was almost twice the price. And so, again, you know, right, the balance of
We can get.
yeah, like, you know, time and cost, right? And yeah, we're cautious at MBA. We're not buying everything from them. You know, we'd rather buy more domestic. But the switchgear ones, which is the other one that you're looking at, again, they you know, each of the transformers were going to be more expensive, so we're balancing what we receive in quality based on mission section and delivery schedule. And you know, in the case of switchgear and MBA, while the time frame was similar, the net savings of $12,000 up there. If we were skeptical on MBA, we wouldn't do it. We're very cautious. You know that.
No, I just, you know, but there's a decent amount, right? That they put out there, they start paying on. It's a lot more money. $100,000 is nothing they will spend on that.
Yeah.
So where's the factor for switch?
Oh, geez, and or,
I try to think the same thing for maybe.
Oh, get G's power. Yeah, I'm gonna suggest. So I think ULS, well, they're even power partners, like those are that. I'm not so sure it's true. And I don't remember looking at that. In terms of the decision process, quality first, price, schedule. But like you said, like the transformer, you want to stay at 30 years. You don't come down. And, you know, it's or these. Yeah. Yeah, you know, we're cautious on NBA, but even though these are actually one of the scores. So they're higher. They're all essentially felt the advantage to right now for efficiency. But they look to be pretty high quality. And, you know, maybe it's the right place at the right time. I don't think it's going to be our partnership going forward, but we can't not have transformers. Read the motion. You want to read the motion?
Move that IFP 2023-36 for single phase pole mounted transformers be awarded to MBA Power Inc. for $391,702 pursuant to MGL. Chapter 164, section 60 on the recommendation of general.
Is that second? Second. Long second. Okay, we have to do a roll call because I believe Mr. Talbot's on this. Sure. So
Yep.
we will go with the seniority. So Mr. Talbot,
I'm not sure if
he's not there.
he's there, but he's mute and video's off, so he might not be.
We'll give us a statement.
Okay.
Mr. Talbot, Peter,
I,
and Ms. Pacino, aye. So 4-1 abstention. Mr. Talbot, let's chime in later on, but accept this, we'll accept this. Okay. Okay, we go on to number 9. Tell us what this is all about.
Yeah, so this is something that the board there on that talking about. It's a public power center close by Sarah, obviously a lot of things with Sarah. We're invited last year, I did not go. But I go this year, I'm encouraged to do a lot to learn, more people, etc. The cost will be below $1,000 threshold, but yeah, since it's not going to be everybody that fall to do attend conference in February. Contacts, but we're part of there. We're going to create some of them, but also the other And you have. Interact.
And so they're covering 3 months of hotel. They're covering.
They cover everything but the flight.
Next there is one of the larger, more innovative, primarily US-based energy companies. They run for an hour and flight. They go under together the TFA program, and Tony did a good job. They own Seabird. They're not as big as they once were. But it's so very helpful, very supportive, and for one of the 2 largest companies. They're very key.
The motion.
I have another question. Should provide value. I know that we have been like, but the value for us. 39, is there like?
Well, I have an estimate what that would cost if we were to pay the whole thing.
Yeah.
I guess each hotel night's gonna be $350, 3 nights hotel, food's covered, so it's probably, if we were to pay for all of it, it'd probably be $2,000.
Yeah. If I need to sell something.
Not easily. Yeah, I would prefer to, you know. I see that, that's me, that's, I like it,
My typical,
thank you,
from a procurement standpoint, is
great.
don't have your.
Hey, folks, I have to sign off. I'm sorry I couldn't be much of a participant tonight. Thanks all.
Okay, good idea. Take care.
Thank you.
I'm very such.
Just, you know, all contracts come to us.
Yep.
Energy purchase contracts.
Yep.
So we feel like that could be influenced. It's okay to type forward. I would feel that would be impactful, but where they're willing to take up the cost.
It's a fair point.
But we will let them take the cost. They are a customer and they're willing to put the bill. Because that was one of our new policies. All energy contracts will come to us at certain sites.
Okay.
Would you like to stay someplace nicer?
No.
No, I mean, like, like I'm.
I think it's, you know, a lot of the discussions happen informally, you know, over, you know, at the end of dinner. And so I need to be the same as I was first. It's so lovely there. And I don't even look at it, to be honest. I just don't schedule it. And I don't know the details. It's no, I've been first, you know, and a lot of the other jams, a lot of the bases. And it's a worthwhile event. I mean, yeah, I just see it as a worthwhile. That sounds pretty good because I've been there 30 years. But I don't know, I mean, I don't, so the answer to your question, I'll just stay for the regular.
I read the motion.
Yes.
Move the RMLD Board of Commissioners approve Greg Fitz travel to and attendance at the 2024 Public Power Summit to take place on February 11th, 14th, 2023 at Boca Raton Park.
Second.
Second, any further discussion? All those in favor, you can come back and raise your hands since the time is up. That motion carries 4-0. Okay, Jim's report.
Great. So a couple of quick comments. You guys, you know, not perfectly. So, okay. So, you know, as usual, right, the team drives the business. So, good news to report. You know, we actively recruiting a director of engineering and actively recruiting a director of operations. We interviewed a lot of individuals for the director of operations position. We sent an offer and it's accepted this morning. So, January 8th, we'll have a director of operations. But I'm pretty excited to have a director of operations in our organization. Here, so that would be recruiting a director of engineering. You guys know from the caliber of individuals that we've recruited at the senior management level in the past 18 months. And with both John and Bill, we're very selective in terms of who joined the team. We expect a lot out of them. So we're still working on the director of engineering. The other position, the direct level position that we had put into the budget last year, and again this year, is the director of enterprise data. You guys have heard on an ongoing basis. This business is becoming more and more data centered, and so we'll probably try and fill that position after we get the director of engineering in place. That theoretically, we probably won't recruit the enterprise data guy until 2022. The other element is just quick updates. So we have been under flex time, very bottom row there, flex time since July of 2022 for the balance of employees, excluding the line workers and the line team and the substation crews. So we had put in place a program, a 4x10 program in place for during the summer. We ran it from May through September. We actually extended it to October. We learned several things from that lesson. We incorporated those changes into the program that we currently have in place. It's been running since early October through almost the end of this month. We want to continue that program. We made some additional refinements and changes, so we are in the process of putting together a memorandum of understanding with the union. The key thing is to solidify coverage on Friday. I've had several discussions with several of you, including Bob, coverage on there's a whole bunch of pieces covered on the weekend as well, but solidifying coverage on Friday has been very important. So we're going to send that through the end of March. That's working pretty well. Overall, the morale and the balance of getting more work done, managing costs. We've got a lot of work to do with the fight. So that's in place. So overall, team's good. We only have a couple of open positions right now that we're actively recruiting for. Two, yes, that's right. Before we leave, we have our holiday employee appreciation lunch tomorrow, which is self-funded, but we have some. I think Jeff Plumber saying and highlights, right? Key piece of information, right? And we didn't talk about it too much tonight. But literally on at least a weekly basis, we look at the load forecast, right? Because the load forecast drives is kilowatt-hour sales drives the revenue of the organization, grow that organization, supports all the costs of the organization, no piece of all that. This summer or this year, 2023, started out with very mild winter, and summer became very mild and rainy as well. Bill's slide, hydro was a pretty big portion of our portfolio this year. That's primarily because it was a wet summer, which means it was also a cool summer. So not too hot, not too cold. Our load in terms of kilowatt hours, will be just under 3% by the time we get to the end of the year. Those are available. It's going to be less than 3%, a little less than 3% less than 2022. We'll go back to what 2020 level was. We expect, and that sets the stage for the discussion we're going to have on monthly bills, rates in January. The forecast right now that we meet every week, extra with a group every week, in terms of what the forecast looks like and what open market prices are around the clock going out to 2027. We're going to possibly it. Anyways, upcoming winter forecast is expected to be mild. That means that relative to what we anticipated back in September, put together the budget, we expect our wholesale, our power supply cost to be less than forecasted. So same for our discussion on what we do with retirements. We expect that the 2024 power supply cost will be lower than budgeted, lower than 2022, potentially lower than all bids. It's all passed through to budget. We'll provide additional update on carbon capture with fuel cells in January. We're doing a lot of work. We took a lot of the input and recommendations that you had, questions you guys had asked in the last meeting, so we're working through all those pieces. We still think that in the context of the greenhouse gas forecast, right? So that's part of the reason why I put the forecast and reporting together is, what things can we do now to reduce our carbon footprint? And so we're working on analysis with the team. fuel cell, carbon capture fuel cell, looks like it would be good, not only economically, but from carbon cap, from a greenhouse gas perspective, and compliance perspective, back to having more certificates that we own, assets that we own. Yeah. The generator gets paid, those, so we be paying ourselves, so that's a good thing. Maybe that's more update in January. We are, so the last piece is, land. Ansbury campus, we reported on this last time, but we're continuing to do work with the town of Reading. They have some grant dollars. We'll do some small contributions to it, but again, the same schedule we wanted to before, but we continue moving forward in terms of what we do at the Ansbury campus. I've not gone back to the field behind it. We need to put some contracts, concepts together. But as I mentioned before, they're open to creative ideas. Route 125, that particular property we've talked about a little bit in the past. It is currently off the market, but we are still actively in the process to pursue it. The owner prefers LOI to proceed of PNS. Both will include due diligence items. Okay. Level 2 entries, environmental, all sorts of pieces. But this one's going to be a little bit different because they think on the West Coast, and if you handle transactional and you're going to be on the East Coast, fine. The town of Wilmington certainly makes supportive of the things we want to try to do with acquire those. That's in process. I will send you some information on that later this week. Maple Meadows Energy Park, as we mentioned before, we're trying to get that property acquired by September. It's got bumps in the road. DEP, we're going to be in January. That's key piece, but we met last week with the owner. Owned by the trust, and I have another meeting on Friday. I'm just trying to figure out a mechanism forward. So and again, before we do anything financially, you guys will be presented. Prove on that. That's still got legs. We like it. We did meet with the as I mentioned before. We met with the committee. I presented to the select board, Reading select board on the 21st. For the general update presentation. 3 of the commissioners were able to attend. When I read my reaction, it was a positive reception, and we have ongoing support from the town of Reading. They like what we're doing, so it's good, and we work very well with them. In fact, we got some good feedback from different departments, saying hey, it's a good relationship overall. Presented on the 27th. So I had a chance to join us. I did Ken Walter from CAP. We presented to the water department, Board of Commissioners for the water department in town of Linfield. The presentation there was solar and battery systems on the Glen Road facility and the process of putting new water treatment for potable water for drinking water. The proposal was well received. The following meeting in December actually happened today, so I met with the superintendent of the commission. We're going to expand the potential for solar in more areas than we originally thought. They might not all work. We are going to develop those, present to the Board of Commission for the Water Department in March, and then to their annual meeting. They call it district meeting in May. I'm encouraged that we've got support from them. That is a key part of our overall strategy of distributed generation, where we have generation in our eastern, in Linfield, for the eastern part of our territory. 125 would be the northern part of our territory, and then generation on the western part of our territory. So that concept of in-territory generation distributed technology is materializing. And the first step, as you see right here, as part of our strategy discussion. It's been plans. I think those are all moving forward. A lot of other things happening, but those are bigger items. So, question?
The Linfield board meeting was rather interesting. Where they're located. They're located in the life center in Linfield.
Yeah. Marketplace. Literally marketplace.
Literally marketplace.
I would say the water department, way down the end of the.
Well, I feel so that's why I was today. Right? That's for today's meeting, but that's so there used to be an old pump station. Phil and I were, where's this like? But it was a well designed. I thought it was they were actually very receptive. They were like, hey, they were willing to think out of the box with us, and that's what we need to do. And so, the thought process there, just so you guys know, the slides. I believe we should. Normally should we did, but the idea is to take our responsibility and non-carbon generation of electricity to link to their water supply and to provide reliability in a non-greenhouse gas basis to their water system. So that's the idea of solar and batteries. So again, there's the business model needs to work, but you know, it's us thinking as Rebecca mentioned, and creative ideas, learning from others, and what can we do here? So I knew it was pretty much. So anyway, that's a quick. There's lots of stuff happening, but overall good.
All right, so schedule and on this little chart here. Do they have any problems with any of these local?
Yeah.
Yes.
Me
If I may, so we met with the board of the CAB earlier. We're trying to get back in the mode of meeting with the CAB prior to the board of commissioners because their recommendations feed into recommendations that we make to you. And then we're also trying to adjust to the fact that Dennis from CAB is taking over for George in terms of his role in the town of Wilmington. And Wednesday nights are half meeting nights, just scheduled, so he cannot attend Wednesday meetings. And we need his participation, particularly in the context of making sure we have a forum and the fact that George Trooper, as retired, shall have one representative. Anyway, all said and done, we want to move the CAB to Thursday nights. Big deal for you. And eventually we'd like to try and move our schedule to Thursday nights, and that might happen sometime in the summer. But in the meantime, the request is that in January, the BOC, if we could meet on Wednesday the 31st rather than Wednesday the 17th. Wednesday the 31st. And then in February, instead of meeting on the 21st, meet a week later, Wednesday the 28th. And then I'll go back over this again. And then March, instead of meeting on the 27th, meet a week later on Wednesday the 27th. So the January meeting, the 31st instead of the 17th, same day, same day, Wednesday, same time.
Well, actually, these, because they're not going to be on the same night as the cab, the January, February, March, if you want to go earlier, we can go earlier.
Oh, yeah, sure. It's a 17 day good one. Yeah, so first the dates and then the time start. So the 31st of January, does that work for everybody? And we decided on it's fine with me. Okay. And you want to start at 6? 6:30?
6 is really tight.
6:30? Yeah. Okay, so 6:30 on that January.
You can do it 6 or 6:30 with me because the office is like 15 minutes away now. So
let's assume 6:30, 31st of January. February 28th. February 28th, 6:30. Work already? Yeah, great. And then March 27th, also Wednesday, 6:30. And then Erica will send out so the coverage will be the same, just on different days for the CAD, so she'll send that out next day for Friday.
I need to swap with somebody. Originally first. Well, now.
you can take bill coverage, Marlene?
No, I don't know yet.
Okay. I could, if you want to swap my January. Swap you,
February 1st.
yeah, I'll swap you my January and take February. Okay,
Okay, so Pam, you're going to cover the January cab, and Phil, you're going to cover the February cab?
Right, and just to be clear, the January cab is on February 1st, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Okay, I'll make those changes too.
Great. Got that?
Yep.
All right. Anything else? So that's it. Schedule. Back to you.
okay.
Thank you.
We got a meeting schedule, and I don't know if anything else for open session at this point. We'll take a motion to adjourn.
During regular session.
Okay, it's moved that the Board of Commissioners adjourn regular session. Is that second? Second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Oh, that motion carries.